All right, so I do not have my full voice today, so forgive me if I sound like a train wreck. I looked at 2 different files from 2 master engineer YouTube videos showing off different converters. One was one by Mark Daniel Nelson, I believe that's correct, and the other one I cannot remember at the moment. But nevertheless, here they are, the first 4 here and the last set here. If we have time, we'll get to the last set. But I'm gonna concentrate on the first 4 because there's only 4 of them here. In order to do this, I'm focusing on the null test because when I do testing, that's really the only thing I care about. If it nulls, it nulls. If it doesn't, then I will listen by ear to figure out what that difference is. But in this scenario, this is mastering. I'm not about to try to pick apart 5%. If it nulls, it nulls. But I do wanna know how much of a difference there is. So I'm going to solo the JCF and I'm going to try to match everything to this. Now, in order to match, I'm going to phase match everything. So if I solo this, there's a point that if you slide these files at its smallest interval, it will make changes. As you can hear. Now, when I originally did this, I did this with the benchmark. So if I solo these, as you see, the further you get away, the more problematic it becomes. And so if I go through these, and you can see how they're different if I use the JCF as the reference. You see, some have more in common than others. And so this is what I did between all of these. So I'm gonna match this back to the benchmark. I used the benchmark because it was called benchmark, you know, go figure. Now my favorite out of this set was the JCF, which surprised me. I've heard about it, but I did not know what type of converter it was. But the sound of it surprises me. So I'm gonna go through these so you can take a listen. Like immediately, I'm gonna pause right here real quick. Immediately when the JCF came in, everything just came full front. When I switched to the Burl, you can hear the bottom end really had some beef inside of it. But when I went to the JCF, the bottom stayed there and then the mids just came. And it went from, I ordered this from favorite to least. And the benchmark sounds very passive. Even though the JCF is a passive converter from what I read, the benchmark sounds passive. It sounds kind of shy. It sounds kind of pristine, glued together, and that's just it. Everything is just fitted into like a little ball. By the time you get to the JCF, it just sounds like imagination. Like the spectrum is wider somehow, and it wasn't supposed to be. So I'm gonna go back up this trail again, see if you can listen to what I'm talking about, and we'll get some vocals in here.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby, so fine and fair. But that river killed them all down there. Me no river, gone and carried them away.
So you can tell how the mids are definitely shyer in the benchmark than in JCF. Listen to this difference.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby.
The dynamics of the mids, the transients of the mids, and somewhere in the between the transient and the sustain of the mids is popping out more. And so while the benchmark doesn't sound bad by any metric, well, none of these sound bad, the JCF is definitely holding on to something. And whether that's what you want or not, it's up to you, but it's definitely holding on to something that the rest of them are not getting. Let's listen to the Burl.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love.
You heard it? Did you hear it right there? It couldn't have been more apparent to me, but listen.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love.
You can hear it in the snare.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love.
The snare starts sounding a little papery, like it's literally hitting paper before it hits the snare drum.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love.
And the depth of the reverb is definitely more colored and darker in the JCF. And I'm monitoring this through these speakers, which is typically what I use for mastering, because the transient precision and reproduction of the spectrum is more accurate than my opals. My opals is really good as a full spectrum speaker. It gives me the mix 80% there. These last 20% gives me transient focused information for when I'm doing mixing. So if I want to judge reverb dynamics in a very microscopic point of view, I use these. So typically my mastering ends with these speakers. And so this is what I'm able to hear when I'm hearing this. I can hear that snare actually hit harder in the JCF and retain its middle mids and low mids much better. When it hits the Burl is bottom heavy. And so the top end of that Burl has a lot of nice air and dust to it, but it starts to thin out the strength of the frequencies as it goes up in the spectrum. And you can kind of hear the tilt happen when I switch from the JCF to the Burl.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby, so fine and fair, but that river killed them all down there.
And what you can also notice when it does that, the side information of the Burl seems to be wider than the JCF because the mids are not as concentrated, which means that your mid and your mid side flow, because you have more mid strength inside of there, the image seems to be a little bit more narrower in the JCF than it does in the Burl.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby, so fine and fair, but that river killed them all down there. Mean old river, gone and carried them away.
Now, what's interesting is that the Burl and the Orion sound really close with each other. The only difference I really hear in the Orion is that it clips more, not in a bad way. So let's say if you're doing hip hop, the Orion will be a really good contender if you're not trying to keep all the information like the JCF is doing. It holds the lows, it holds the mids, holds the highs, but you will probably incur just a little bit more distortion than normal because it is rounding out those transients more than the rest of them. But it's not a bad thing.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love.
Matter of fact, if you look at the meters, you can tell on the Orion that it's hitting a line a little bit harder. Now, whether it was mastered that way or it was just a little bit hotter, I don't know. But as far as these files go, this is what I'm getting.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby, so fine and fair, but
It's so apparent. Now, remember, these converters is really only doing the last 5%. And most of the time, your music is not going to be dependent on a converter. This is if you have the luxury of spending extra money to shape your sound one more time before you send it off to the world. You can spend $3,000 to $4,000 and get one of these converters. Or 2,000, maybe. I think could be 2,500. Like the Orion, I think is around 2,500, 3,000. Either way, all this is just a extra step of what else can you do to your master before you send it out. Do not think you need these converters. So let's keep going. Let's try to benchmark.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby, so fine and fair.
So yeah, you can kind of hear that same thing that happens with the Burl, with the benchmark. But the difference between the Burl and the benchmark,
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby, so fine and fair.
is that the benchmark does not hold the bass as much. The benchmark bottoms out. Not in a bad way, but if you're looking for hip hop, I wouldn't go with the benchmark. It does not keep your low frequencies as strong as the rest of these do.
I had a lady, and my life was full of love. I had a baby, so fine and fair. But that river killed them all down there. Mean old river, gone and carried them away.
It's almost as if in the bottom end, there is a void that is missing right there. My Fiverr page is back up and running, in which I am doing mixing and mastering and one other gig, which is if you would like to run your product through my silver bullet here for as small as $10. Yes, $10. I will be happy to run your track through the silver bullet and finish it just through the silver bullet. If you want full on mastering, let me know. It is $50. If you would like mixing, and mixing does come with a master with it, it is $80. Let me know, and I will be happy to work with anybody on primarily any genre. However, if you are a metal or some type of obtuse kind of a music genre out there, I may not have that experience, but I am willing and able. So if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe if you would like to see more content. And thank you for watching. Peace.